Good evening, everyone. You're watching Awaz News. I'm Kubra Ali, and I'll be taking you to top news across Canada.
3-year-old girl dead after struck by vehicle in driveway in Peterborough. Crowds of Toronto shoppers lined up for grant a reopening of Zellers. Ontario pharmacists to be given new prescribing powers. Jagmeet Singh says NDP won't trigger an election over foreign interference concerns. Man goes missing after escaping from explosion fire at Richmond Hill home. Trudeau stayed in $6,000 London hotel suite for Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. Ontario invests in industry in largest budget in province's history.
Those were the headlines, and now let's look into the detail.
A 3-year-old girl has died after being struck by a vehicle in a driveway in Peterborough on Thursday morning. Police said the collision occurred on Woodglade Boulevard near Sherbrooke Street at around 9 a.m. Speaking to reporters at the scene, Sergeant Dan McLean said a vehicle, for unknown reasons, left the roadway and struck a girl in the driveway of her home. The girl suffered life-threatening injuries and was transported to hospital where she was pronounced dead. It is an absolute tragedy that this event had occurred, McLean said. He added that 2 other children were reportedly in the driveway, but no other injuries were reported. When asked why the vehicle went off the road, he said investigators will try to piece evidence to determine the circumstances surrounding the crash. We are going to have to take everything into account as far as weather, speed, other types of things that we take into account as far as the vehicle and how mechanically fit the vehicle is. So these are all things that will be a part of our investigation and we'll be completing a full investigation as it is a very serious incident, McLean said. Pharmacists in Ontario are being given the power to prescribe new over-the-counter medications. The Duckford government made the announcement on Thursday in its 2023 budget, saying the original push to have pharmacists prescribe some medications has been hugely popular. Starting the fall, the expanded prescribing power will include medications that treat moderate acne, canker sores, diaper dermatitis, yeast infections, pinworms, and threadworms, and nausea and vomiting related to pregnancy. Pharmacists have been able to prescribe Paxlovid, an oral antiviral treatment for COVID-19 since December 2022. The rate of dispensing Paxlovid had increased by more than 130% since pharmacists were permitted to prescribe the medication, the government said. Prior to the date, Ontarians needed a prescription from a doctor or clinical assessment center in order to access the treatment. These responsibilities were further expanded in January 2023 after the Progressive Conservatives gave pharmacists the ability to fill prescriptions for 13 of the most common ailments. This included hay fever, oral thrush, dermatitis, pink eye, menstrual cramps, acid reflux, hemorrhoids, cold sores, impetigo, insect bites and hives, tick bites, sprains and strains, and UTIs. At the time, the Minister of Health said the move would provide Ontarians with more convenience and free up doctors to provide for more complex needs. The Ontario government says it is on track to balancing the budget by 2025 despite having the largest spending plan in the province's history. The 186-page budget titled Building a Strong Ontario puts a heavy emphasis on support for industry, offering tax relief to manufacturers and small businesses while pledging millions towards expanding surgeries at private clinics. It also appears to follow through on the Duckford government's promise to show restraint during uncertain times. Under the spending plan released Thursday afternoon, Ontario's deficit has dropped drastically to about $2.2 billion for this fiscal year, which is about $17.7 billion lower than 2022. The government is projecting a deficit of $1.3 billion in 2023 to 2024 and a small surplus of $200 million in 2024 to 2025. The $204.7 billion budget is the largest in the province's history, surpassing last year's spending by more than $6 billion. But officials say this is the result of higher than projected inflation and more resilient economy. Included in the fiscal plan is about $81 billion for healthcare, $34.7 billion for education, and $38.1 billion in other programs. Interest on debt is the province's 4th biggest expenditure at $14.5 billion. No money has been earmarked towards the building of new hospitals and roadway infrastructure after the government committed $4 billion to highways last year. Instead, the government is investing an additional $72 million in 2023-2024 to make more surgeries available at community surgical and diagnostic centers. This tracks with the Ford government's plan to reduce surgical backlogs by investing in private clinics and allowing them to perform more OHIP coverage surgeries. The government is also investing just over $41 million to hire healthcare workers. According to the government, the money will be used to hire up to 200 hospital medical supervisors, to train newly graduated nurses, and retain 100 mid to late career nurses. It will also help at least 50 internationally trained physicians get licensed. The government is also spending $200 million in 2023 to 2024 to address immediate healthcare shortages. In total, Ontario's 10-year capital plan includes about $27.9 billion for highways, $70.5 billion for transit, more than $48 billion for hospital infrastructure, and $22 billion for education. Police are searching for a vulnerable young man last seen exiting a burning home in Richmond Hill. A release issued Thursday said an explosion and subsequent fire occurred at residential property on March 28th on Deerwood Crescent, which is south of Bloomington Road and east of Bathurst Street. Investigators allege that Daniel Popov, 21, was last seen leaving the home at 12:50 p.m. after the incident. They say they believe he was the sole occupant of the house at the time. Daniel was witnessed in the area following the incident, but he did not return to the house and has not contacted his family, police said. Police do not believe Daniel was injured, but share his family's concerns for his well-being. Popov is described as 6'1" and 170 pounds with short blonde hair. Police say he was last seen wearing a black hoodie, a grey jacket, dark sweatpants, and dark shoes with white trim. The cause of the explosion remains unknown at this time, police said. They confirmed that Ontario's fire marshal has been notified and is involved in the case. Crowds of nostalgic shoppers poured into Zellers as the Canadian retail chain opened its doors once again at select stores in Ontario. Before the store opened at 10 a.m. on Thursday, shoppers lined up in the rain outside of Scarborough Town Centre, one of the select locations opening in the province. On March 14, Zellers announced it would be reopening 25 stores across Ontario and Alberta and relaunching its e-commerce platform after being closed for about a decade. In the Greater Toronto area, the retailer welcomed shoppers at Erin Mills Town Centre in Mississauga and Burlington Mall in Burlington. In addition to the location Scarborough across Ontario, Zellers is back open for business in Cambridge, Kingston, London, Ottawa, and St. Catharines. Ahead of the official opening, a DJ played pump-up jams, and by 11:30 a.m., Zellers Diner on Wheels opened for Scarborough customers to pop in for a bite as they peruse the big box store's famous everyday low prices. Diners could grab a Big Z burger, hot chicken sandwich, grilled cheese, chicken fingers, or fries and gravy. While Zeddy did not make an appearance on opening day, the chain's mascot is expected to come back soon. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says New Democrats are not willing to trigger a federal election over rising concerns about foreign interference in recent federal elections. Canada's democracy must be safeguarded, and holding another election now would leave voters with the same concerns being debated now, Singh told reporters on Thursday. My goal is to safeguard democracy, encourage people to participate, make sure people feel comfortable voting and feel safe to vote and are not being influenced in their votes, Singh said. That goal is not met by triggering an election. Singh said a public inquiry must be held immediately in order to clear the air about recent media reports that allege foreign interference by China in the past two federal elections. Han Dong announced Wednesday night that he will not sit as an independent while a reporter investigates claims of Chinese interference, including allegations that the Toronto MP willingly received electoral support through Chinese officials. Both the NDP and Bloc Québécois said Dong did the right thing by stepping down from the Liberal caucus. The Bloc is also calling for a public inquiry, adding that Dong must be presumed innocent until proven otherwise, a guarantee that every Canadian is granted. We need to respect that, said Bloc MP Alexis Bernal Duceppe. The Prime Minister's office says Justin Trudeau and his wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, stayed in a $6,000 per night hotel suite while attending the funeral for Queen Elizabeth II. The stay at the Corinthia London Hotel became the subject of public debate last fall when media honed in on the details of the $400,000 trip after obtaining documents through access to information requests. But Trudeau's office and Global Affairs Canada did not respond to questions last month about who stayed in the expensive River Suite, which features a butler service. Opposition MPs on the Government Operations Committee asked for a copy of all receipts and invoices associated with the trip last month. In a statement, the Prime Minister's office says hotel prices surged significantly ahead of the funeral, and many London hotels were sold out as 500 heads of state and their delegations descended on the city. The room was booked on September 9th, one day after the Queen's death. In November, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre peppered Trudeau with questions in the House of Commons about who stayed in the suite, but he didn't answer. A press secretary for Trudeau said Thursday that the Queen's death was a significant event for Canadians.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kubra Ali. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good night.